Folks, the plot thickens. Even as more details continue to come in concerning the very unfortunate and tragic chopper accident in Turkana, there are still very difficult questions that need to be answered and will most likely never be answered. Yeah, because this is Kenya. Now, some members on this channel have suggested that the American FBI are going to get involved. And if they do, we will get answers. I'm sorry, but I don't agree. Now, get me right. Yes, the FBI could get involved, yeah, because these are American citizens. But despite the reputation of the Bureau in the States, I'm afraid the Bureau's reputation in Kenya does not match. And I will explain in a minute. You see, this is one of the advantages of being 100 years old. Because you remember. And you remember, we have been here before. Now, in the year 2000, a man called Father John Anthony Kaiser was found dead in his car. He had actually been shot at the back of his head. Now, although Father Kaiser was a Catholic priest, this was a former military man. Yes, he had been a paratrooper. And I guess this is what made him fearless. Fearless enough to stand up to the draconian government of Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. In fact, a few months before his death, the government had actually tried to deport him, claiming that his work permit had expired. What Kaiser did, he went into hiding in Kisii. This was not a small man, And he went into hiding while his papers were being organized. And then when his new work permit was granted, of course, wakubwa waliongea. Consultations amongst very high levels, I'm sure. He came out of hiding. In March 2000, the Law Society of Kenya presented Father Kaiser with its annual Human Rights Award, for his public testimony before the Akiumi Commission and his support of some two girls. They called him, in the citation, a study in courage, determination, and sacrifice on behalf of the weak, oppressed, and downtrodden. And the man knew the dangers of standing up to the mighty Kenyan government. And in an earlier book, a book he wrote about his experiences in the Maela camp, he wrote, and I quote, "I want all to know that if I disappear from the scene, because the bush is vast and hyenas many, that I am not planning any accident, nor, God forbid, any self-destruction. Instead, I trust in a good guardian angel and in the action of grace." John Kaiser. Now, this is a very interesting quote from his book, because the FBI, after thorough investigations in Kenya, ruled that Father Kaiser had committed suicide. Rest in peace, Father Kaiser. You'll always be remembered. Anyway, my point is, when politics gets involved, not even the mighty, reputable, impossible to corrupt FBI is immune. They are not, as was proved by this classic Father Kaiser case. You get shot in the back of your head. How did you pull off that suicide? Now, here's an important clue, over the death of Father Kaiser for those who are interested. When he died, he was 3 weeks away from testifying at the International Criminal Courts at The Hague against the Moi government. Let me just leave it there. Mercifully, both houses of the United States Congress passed a joint resolution calling Father Kaiser's death an assassination, and they called on the US State Department to investigate. Well, 18 long years later, still nothing. I guess investigations are still ongoing. So bottom line, an FBI investigation that will tell us the truth, go tell that to the birds. Not in Kenya. Sorry, not in Kenya. Anyway, my apologies for the digression. Back to what we're speaking about today. Now, in any murder investigation, the first thing police have to do, investigators have to do, is to find out as much as they possibly can about the victims. Because how else do you investigate the murder? How else do you find a motive without fully identifying the victims? And this is the same in an assassination. It is important to identify the people involved in this chopper accident. Now, the big bombshell, which had me reeling in shock, is that, wait for this one, most of the victims involved in this very unfortunate accident, and our condolences go out to their families, and loved ones who have lost their people. We feel for them, but we still have to get to the bottom of it. Most of the victims, who are of course American nationals, were political analysts or political consultants. Now, this fact should make any investigator, trying to get to the bottom of this, trying to establish whether it was an accident or whether there was some foul play. This is the kind of information that should make them sit up and pay attention. We know that things in Kenya are very political at the moment. To make matters worse, the pilot who was piloting the chopper is the personal pilot of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto, who at the moment is bang in the middle of a major unprecedented political storm. We are not speculating. Those are bare, solid facts. Now, so far, nobody wants to claim ownership of the chopper involved in that accident. But it is widely believed that actually that helicopter belonged to DP William Samoei Ruto. And in any case, the Deputy President's personal pilot, you would expect him to be piloting what? Somebody else's aircraft? Unlikely. So let us dig a little deeper and identify the names and what those people are doing for a living, the victims involved in this very unfortunate accident. And we shall do that immediately after the brief upcoming commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, the 4 passengers of the ill-fated chopper have been identified as Kyle John Fort, stripper Brandon Howie, Buck Anders Asher, and Baker David mark. Now, very interesting here. Initially, the fourth American involved in this chopper accident was not identified. The name was not released. Now, at the tail end of this video, I will tell you my suspicions as to why the name was not initially released. Indeed, details about him are very scanty. I'd like to call him the Invisible Man. There's usually a good reason. And I'll talk about that towards the end of this video. So let's come to the ones we have details on. Anders Asher Buck was an entrepreneur. He owned two companies in San Diego. The Bricks Agency, which is a creative and branding agency, and Campaign Services Group, which is a setup, an outfit for political campaigns. Now, this campaign firm, which should be of great interest to Kenyans, has worked with the American candidates, political candidates, including Tim Donnelly, a former Republican representative, and Brian Jones, who still represents San Diego County. Now, fascinatingly, in 2012, Mr. Buck was fined $400 for failing to file statements of economic interests. That's related to tax. And then shortly after that, his companies went quiet. Now, that's very strange. But even if your businesses go quiet, your skills remain. We know what your skill sets are. Therefore, this was a political expert, if we can just call them that in Kenyan terms. Now, the late John Fort Kyle owned or co-founded a political consulting firm called D/CO. Now, Brandon Howie Strapper did not own any political consultancy firm. However, he was involved in the printing business. Now, if we remember the latest drama, or the recent drama over the 2017 presidential elections, you'll remember there was a very big issue with printing. Printing is very closely linked to politics. You need to print posters, you need to print all kinds of campaign material, etc., etc. So Bwana Strapper, being a design expert, and owning a printing company, has a link to the other political consultants. Information on the fourth American, David Mark Baker, is very scanty. And as I promised, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Now, all the information I'm getting so far on the pilot, the late Mario Magonga, all of it suggests that Bwana Magonga was an extraordinary pilot, extraordinarily skilled. Now, especially in Africa, when people pass on, they become greater than they were when they were alive. People overpraise them, exaggerate the qualifications, exaggerate what they achieved. And so in my research, I was very careful to make sure that I didn't get this kind of information, exaggerated information. And I can confirm to you, that this man was probably one of the best chopper pilots on the continent. That's the truth. He was also a trainer. You don't train people in anything unless you're very good at it. You know it backwards, like the back of your hand. And not only that, Bwana Magonga is an ex-KDF, Kenya Defense Forces. So he got his training in the Kenya Defense Forces. Now, there's a very huge difference between flying a chopper or even an aeroplane in peace times, over peaceful territory, and flying the same over hostile territory. Now, military pilots are trained to fly in hostile territory because that's their work. That's what they do. And that is why when they move over to commercial flying, they become excellent, very good, exceptional pilots. Some years back, I was in an aircraft that landed at the Diani airstrip, in South Coast. And as we were landing, I noticed that the landing was a bit uncomfortable. Sharp braking, etc., etc. If you're accustomed to flying, you'd know the difference. And being the curious type, After we landed, I did a bit of investigation. Yeah, I asked around, did a bit of research, and I found out something completely astonishing. The airstrip at Diani was rather short, and the aircraft we came in required a longer airstrip. Yeah, because it was quite a long aircraft, of course, designed to carry as many passengers as possible. Yeah, because whatever you think, airlines are profitable organizations, yeah, although they have to be safe. And the aircraft was actually being flown by a former Air Force pilot, Kenya Air Force pilot. And I was told, yeah, that that pilot was one of the few who could pull off, yeah, who could pull off a landing at Diani with that kind of aircraft. Another pilot could easily tell you, no, I'm not even attempting it. Anyway, my point is, people who have worked in the defense forces, yeah, Air Force, KDF, are very skilled pilots. And this deepens the mystery here, because this was an extremely skilled pilot. There was another helicopter which managed to land safely, flown by a pilot who had no experience in combat situations, like the late Capt Mario Magonga. Now, of course, I know accidents happen. Yeah, and accidents can happen to anybody, no matter how skilled you are. However, this, when you put it together with the other facts surrounding this unfortunate accident, increases the size of the huge question mark over the whole accident. In other words, there are just too many questions. Yeah, political analysts flying over an area that is known to be dangerous and attempting it at night when conditions are very windy. Too many questions. Now, as promised on Bwana Baker, now there are people who live on this world who are invisible, yeah, and with good reason. They're intelligence officers, cloak and dagger staff, yeah, or you can call them spies. Now, usually these are very brave people, very well trained, yeah, who do very crazy things for their country. They love their country. And naturally, because of the nature of their work, yeah, it is a good idea for them to remain invisible. It is also for their own protection, because if they are identified in certain areas in the world, yeah, their lives can be in great danger. So get me right, I'm not speculating here, I don't have any information, but what I'm saying is one of the possible reasons why somebody would be cagey about releasing a name or releasing information on a certain person is the reason I've just given you. Yeah, we don't know. I'm just giving one of the possible reasons. Let me just leave it at that. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.